Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Ashley's Oasis. And today we will be talking about running your own race. Last week wasn't that great of a week for me. It's filled with a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but I'm better now. I think it was just one of those type of weeks, just wasn't my week, and that's okay. But I did encounter some interesting situations that kind of prompted me to want to talk about, running your own race and what kind of sparked that idea. So last week, like I said, was pretty tough, but I did have an encounter that kind of just had me a little confused about why people seem to be so invested in other people's lives and how they choose to live their lives or how they're choosing to run their race. Some people, some people really benefit from hearing other people's input about things that they choose to do in their lives or how they choose to go about walking that path. I'm not one of those people. I have always been a person who just, I know what I want to do and I'm going to set out to do it. Doesn't matter if I fall, stumble, trip along the way. As long as I get there, that's all that I care. I've always admired the tortoise and the hare story. I've always considered myself the tortoise. I've always been told by numerous individuals throughout my life that I move slow physically as well as just, in general about certain things. And that's because I'm a pretty analytical person. I like to analyze things from several different perspectives and different ways to try to calculate how it might go wrong. And I know sometimes that can kind of be a negative thing because it causes me to not start things like when I need to start them. But once I, figure out all of the work in the beginning, then I tend to be able to get past those humps and bumps and just can continue to stay focused on whatever my task is at hand. And like I said, I've always considered myself more so the tortoise in that story. I've never been a very tenacious or a very, go-getter and competitive person. Like, that's just not my personality. That's not my style. I tend to just like to take the scenic route, if you will, about things, unless it's something I absolutely have to make a definitive, decision on right then and there. But yeah, so the instance that had me thinking about that is I had to take my children to their annual checkup last week, and my eldest son, he pretty much has a good head on his shoulders. He knows what he does and what he doesn't want in life, going forward into adulthood. This is his senior year. And of course, we've discussed things like college and, alternative options like technical school or trade schools or, getting a certificate or in certain things like that, if he didn't want to go the traditional route, which is college, because I know that's something that most parents tend to push their children towards. However, my son has always been, I don't want to say anti-college. He was curious about it and we've researched about it. He's had an opportunity to explore colleges and things like that. And he just ultimately decided that that's not for him. And that's not the life path that he wants to take. And his father and I completely support his decision. We don't feel like it's setting him up for failure or nothing like that, because at the end of the day, there's more than one way to be successful in this life. And I know that there is an upward trend of children in his age group that are opting out of college at higher rates. And I don't think that's so much of an alarming thing as it is that, these young people are being able to wake up and assess what they want and what they don't want for their lives. Not everyone wants to start out college and, going to start their adult lives and a bunch of debt and all that type of stuff. Like, I completely understand and respect anyone's reasons for if they do choose or not choose to go. It's like it's a complete personal decision. But the doctors in question who were speaking to him that day were like, you know, I guess concerned because, as I stated before, I do homeschool my children, or more so that they homeschool at home, and they do school at home, excuse me. And he, you know, has been really on a journey since his junior year to figure out where he fits, you know, in this big world, as most of us tend to struggle with. And if you don't, hey, kudos to you. But he ultimately was like, you know what, I don't want to go the traditional route. I'm just comfortable and I'm okay with working a 9 to 5 to pay my bills and go on and live my life however I want. And I said, hey son, I completely understand now. I'm like, hey, ultimately once you hit the age of accountability, which is 18, I no longer have reign over you. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you how to live your life. I'm like, at the end of the day, how you choose to navigate this life is your personal decision, meaning that whether it be good or bad, you have to stand accountable for your choices and your actions. You can't look back and try to blame anyone, you know, like, oh, you didn't tell me. It's like, no, because of the type of person and the type of mother that I am, is that I believe in presenting my children with all of their options, leaving it on the table, and then letting them decide what's best for them, at least with my oldest son, because he is at that age that he can make more, you know, important decisions. But the doctors, like I said, in question seem to have such concern and, oh, why does he want to go to school? And, you know, and I could just tell that they seem to be like, oh, maybe she's, you know, maybe she's discouraging him. And it's like, no, I'm just a parent. And again, my husband and I agree. We're just type of parents that we're not going to fight him on things like that we know that ultimately he'll go. And if he doesn't, he hates it, you know, not only is he out of money, he's out of time, you know, and then he's right back to square one of trying to figure out what he wants to do. And I feel like so many young individuals don't really get that time to really sort out for themselves what they want to do. The world tries to make things seem so finite, like you got to make a decision right now, right now, right now, right now. You got to know what you want to do right now, right now, right now. And I understand that maybe, you know, from the older generations where things were pretty much cut and dry. Hey, you graduate high school, you go to college, or don't go to college, you go to the workforce, you get a job, you stay there until you retire. Guess what? Our society no longer operates like that. And if it does, it's dying out. And a lot of people in my age range, millennials, we definitely know that that doesn't suit how we feel, or has never really been the template for our lives. So why would I push my son to want to follow an outdated template for life when I know that it's not been successful for me? You know, it's not been successful for a lot of individuals who find themselves in the same predicament. But yeah, the doctor seemed concerned, and I really didn't understand it, and he didn't either. Like, they were flustering him because they just couldn't accept his decisions about what he wants to do with his life. And, you know, it's not like he's like, oh, I want to grow up and be a serial killer. Oh, I want to, you know, he's just like, hey, I just want to work a 9 to 5, something that I can pay my bills with and live the rest of my life however I choose. If that's, you know, I think he said he had an ultimate goal, want to become an exotic pet owner. And, you know, and I said, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's your business. You're paying your bills, you're paying your way. I have no complaint. I know that I know the type of individual my child is, and I believe he's going to be successful no matter where he ends up, no matter what he puts his hands to. And I think our society sometimes forgets that it's the little guys, it's the little people in the world, so to speak, who make this whole thing run around. You know, all of these celebrities and top chefs and surgeons and all that. And it's like, yeah, but you guys, most in part, wouldn't be where you are if it weren't for the little team of people that you tend to have supporting you. Like, you know, if you have a spouse that stays at home with the children, and or if you have a nanny or a personal chef or whatever, if you can afford all that type of stuff. But it's the little people, the people who wash and fold and put up your laundry. It's the, you know, the guy who shows up on time at McDonald's so you as a doctor can swing by there and get a quick breakfast before you go to the, it's the little people who do the little jobs that are actually the big jobs, who make everybody up there, up top, look stellar, that they are. So I don't really think that we should push people to want to, go for the top, go for the top. Not everyone wants to be at the top. That's one thing. Not everyone wants to be at the top, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, some of us just want to live a regular life. Some of us just want to go to work, make our bucks, come home, love on our families, do our hobby, numerous hobbies or whatever. And again, that's okay. But the way that the world is set up, it makes you feel like you're a failure if you don't have a certificate that tells you, oh, you got this degree, or if you don't have those specific initials behind your name to state that you're a doctor or a PhD or whatever. Like, no hate or shame to anybody who has those things, but I really wish we would stop as society shaming people who don't have those things, because the vast majority of the world don't have those things, and that is okay. Like, it's okay for either or. It really all depends on your personal journey, your personal race that you're running. The only person you should be in competition with is yourself. You should not be comparing yourself to any one person on this planet, because at the end of the day, there's no one who can do what you do, who can do it like you. No one. So whatever you're choosing to do in this life, whether that's you want to go to clown school and be the best clown, or you want to just be a humanitarian who just goes around helping the poor and the less fortunate, if you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a surgeon, you want to be whatever it is, you just want to work at Walmart and do your job and go clock out, go home. That is okay. Like, life is meant to be lived unencumbered. And that also means by other people's expectations and projections. Because if I had anything to say in those doctors, which I didn't in that moment, because I believe in letting my children speak for themselves. But if I had, it would have just simply been that my husband and I respect his decision, and that there is nothing in his life that he can't do. And I think what we also forget is that school and all these organizations will always be there. Always. They're not going anywhere. As far as I know, they're not going anywhere. So I don't really understand the needing to pressure kids and young adults to decide now. You got to decide now. And it's like, no, you don't. You really don't. And I know some people say, oh, well, that'll just lead you to just drift and wander throughout your life. Well, guess what? All who wander aren't lost. That's number one. Number two is that sometimes by allowing and giving those individuals the space to figure out those things for themselves, they might actually land where they're meant to be. By allowing my son to take his young adult years, he might go and get a job, quote unquote, just to say at Target or something. And maybe after a year or two of doing that, he's like, you know what? Yeah, I thought this is what I want, but this isn't what I want. And guess what? That'll be fine. He has his whole life ahead of him to figure things out along the way. And he can continue to build himself during the meantime. If he decides ultimately that he does change his mind and wants to go to school, I've set up his schooling so that he will be able to do that. There should be nothing that should stop him from being able to do that. And I don't motivate my children to have a defeatist attitude, like, oh, I don't have this, so I just can't do it. Like, no, when there's a will, there's a way, there's a loophole, there's a secret, that maybe we don't know. There might be other individuals who have this knowledge that we can go and ask them. Like, there is always another way to find a way around those obstacles that might come up. But as far as other people being overly concerned and invested in someone else's life path because their projections is, oh, well, if they don't do this, they're not going to be successful. A lot of times that's because they were pressured oftentimes into the life path that they've chosen. I know, and I've seen firsthand so many adults who have taken on life paths that they never wanted. They did it because either their parents forced them, or that, the world or society made them believe, well, if I just get this, then I'll be this. I've heard of so many stories of individuals going to school and going to college and getting their degrees, and then they can't even find work in the field that they went to college for. So basically you pay for an expensive piece of paper just to sit up and collect dust, essentially, because you're not being able to practice in your respective field. How does that make sense? Compared to my child wanting to go out and get actual real world life experience, which, hate to tell you, but most jobs prefer, which is experience over credentials, because anyone can get credentialed. If he got into a job and they're like, hey, well, in order for you to keep this job, you're going to have to go to school, or you're going to have to take this class or that, and he'll be able to do that with no problem. But oftentimes people have a hard time curating experience for their respective occupations and or careers. So I really want to push that message of don't judge other people's life paths. Even if it doesn't sound right to you, even if it doesn't look right to you, that's, you know why that's okay? Is because it's not your life. It's not meant for someone else's life or journey to make sense to you. That would be like you needing to make sense of my life. Oh, well, why did she choose to do this X, Y, or Z? It's not your concern. If I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not hurting myself. I'm thriving, I'm surviving, I'm doing fine, I'm living my life how I wish. What's the problem? What's the concern? Everyone's life doesn't have to look the same. And it doesn't. And I know, there might be a push, where you're setting your, children up for failure with not preparing them. That couldn't be far from the truth. I and my husband, we started our journey in life very young, and we had to learn everything hitting the ground running. My children have not had to experience that, because anything that we didn't know, we taught them. Everything that we learned along the way, we made sure to teach them. And everything that we, have learned throughout trial and error and all these years of being parents and just, researching and all that, we've made sure that our children are learning right there with us along the way. So we are doing our best to instill values and principles in them that we necessarily weren't. And at the end of the day, there is no foolproof way to do anything. Like, everyone just simply has to go at this life the best way they know how. And the ultimate thing I would like to say is that he will always have us here to help him. I'm not going to sit here and say, a safety cushion, like, he quits a job every other week. Oh, you're ever going to pay? No, that's not what I mean. But I mean, ultimately, if the chips fall down, he's on his last dollar, and we know he's been out there trying hard, working hard. We got him. We will do whatever we need to make sure that he can get out there and sustain his life as a young man navigating through this world. But I'm not going to tear down my son for choosing a different life path or running a different race than myself or my spouse or those who are around us. And I really do believe that the environment that we're in terms of the state that we live in, people all seem so, competitive to the point where they tear down other people to make themselves feel better, and or they're constantly comparing their wealth, if you will, to someone else's to make themselves seem better or bigger. And it's like, we're not those type of people. We don't compare ourselves to someone to make ourselves feel better. We believe everyone deserves respect. It doesn't matter what career choice or what position that they hold in this life. I don't care if this person's homeless or is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to treat everyone the same with the same level of respect, as long as they're showing me the same. That's it. I'm not teaching my children to look down their nose on people who didn't navigate life the traditional route. There's been so many quote unquote successful celebrities and popular people who didn't do things the traditional way, didn't get success at the correct age and whatever that's supposed to mean. Like, things come and happen to people when they're meant to happen and come. Like, that's just it. But there's no one person on this planet that can tell you when and where and how that's supposed to happen for you, because you can work hard, and I'm gonna do this, but yet still not be successful. Well, I did all the classes. Well, I smoozed all the people I could smooze with and get in connections with, and I still can't. That's because you're forcing something that likely isn't meant to happen, and or it's not meant to happen at that time. There's just some things you can't rush in this life. And running your own race will keep you focused on you, which is the most important thing. Are you happy? Because running your race shouldn't be miserable. It should be a collective journey of experiences that you either learn from, grow from, or maybe take a couple hits from, but ultimately you should be learning from it. If everything you do just comes easy, you're not really learning from that. That's not really a challenge. It takes a lot of work and perseverance to want to keep running your race when you keep getting setback after setback after setback after setback. And when you decide that, hey, no matter what happens, I'm going to stay focused, I'm going to stay dedicated, I'm going to stay motivated to my personal goals, then you don't have to worry about what the world has to say or what other individuals have to say about your life, because it's not their life. You didn't get to say so on how they chose to navigate their life and run their race. So why do they feel that they are entitled to say something about yours? It's one thing if someone's asking your personal opinion, but it's another to interject and to project your fears about what could or couldn't happen for that person's life. Because that's one thing I refuse to live in is fear. I refuse to allow my children to live in a state of fear about that topic either. Like, there is no one way to do life. Because if that were the case, everyone would be 100% the same. Instead of there being a world full of doctors, lawyers, etc., it'd just be a world full of doctors. Do you think the world would really progress if it was just a world full of doctors? Then who's going to be the patients? If everybody's doctors, everybody knows how to heal themselves and is well. And exactly. So there are some people that don't want to reach for the highest heights in life, and that's okay. There are so many people that leave this realm all the time who was just that kind old janitor who cleaned the bathrooms at the local, elementary school, and the kids loved him. And he goes home to his little bachelor pad and would just spend out the rest of his days happy as a little lamb. I have mad respect for people like that, because at the end of the day, he didn't do any harm to the world or people in it. He just went, lived his life, spread as much kindness and goodness as he could, and did his role and went home. He didn't sit there and try to say, oh, well, because I'm a janitor at this school, you're a sucky janitor because you don't do that. Like, no, like, this, again, hypothetically, of course, but it's just that it gets really infuriating when people try to tell you how to run your race. And that's what I want to encourage you all to just remind yourselves, that no one has the right to tell you how to run your race. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they think they have all the credentials in the world. They still don't have the credentials on you. No one knows you better than you. Listen to yourself first. Stop allowing the world and stop allowing other people to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Because at the end of the day, they're not you. You're you, and there's only one you. So run your race, no matter how fast or slow that might be. In that case, you might be the tortoise, more so like myself, or you might be the hare. Either way, guess what? Everyone's going to cross that finish line, because we have no choice but to. And what I like to tell my children is, hey, things aren't done in this life. There's nothing that you can't do. The only time that things are completely finite is when you're gone. When you leave this realm, it's done. You can't do anything more. But that's not oftentimes the case. We have nothing but time. If we think time is limited to a set milestone or point, oh, I'm 30, I should have this by now, then no, you're never going to reach where you need to reach. What if your success isn't supposed to pop off until you're 45? You're telling me you're going to whine and boo-hoo all throughout your 30s because it didn't happen during your 30s when the world told you that's when it's supposed to happen? That'd be idiotic. Because I would just encourage you to just keep pressing along. Eventually, you will get there. No matter what that looks like for you. Don't let other people try to judge what that looks like for you. Run your race, and they should run theirs. Well, that's all I have to say for the day. Until next time, see ya.